This is the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by James and Paddy as we cover the back-to-back champions of Scotland. Kyogo and O were the heroes on the day as Celtic claimed the title for the second season in succession, and it's a win that secures the 115th major trophy in our 135-year history. It's also our 17th league title in 23 years since the turn of the century, and it's the fourth trophy and counting in the magical era of Ange Postecoglou. Paddy, you mentioned in yesterday's Match Reaction podcast that this is now title number 18 in your Celtic supporting life. Where does this one rank with the others?
I think that's an on-the-spot question there, Tino.
I'd like you to number them 1 to 18.
1 to 18.
Right
so,
now.
Guys, welcome to the Paddy Hour. It has to be up there. I think all the chat from the other side, and again, us just kind of grinding out results, sticking to our job and sticking to our task, and not getting sucked into any of their chat, leaving that to us mainly. I just think it was a very, very professional league campaign. We seem to be kind of looking at the standards set by the club, and I think that's a big factor in how we move forward. We've seen a bit of a shambles kind of like evolve, even come the end of Rodgers' era at Celtic as well. We've kind of seen that, not always sitting okay. So they've really, really woke up to that, and they're really, really starting to kind of answer the questions asked by us fans. We speak about last year's title being so important and an incredible league win as well. I still think that takes a bit of beating considering what we came through. But this year, I really just seen a real professional go at it, not involved with any war of words whatsoever. We do our talking on the park. We've always done this under this manager. And it's the fact that, I think we're going to continue with this manager as well when it comes to new players coming in, new changes behind the scenes. Not one sniff of it getting out to the media, and that is a happy camp, in my opinion. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think you're right there. You talk about just a very professional league campaign, and you can't argue with the numbers on it. So of the 34 league games, 31 wins, 2 draws, and just that one loss at St Mirren to speak of. I've still got 4 games to go as well to improve on the goals and points record. So in a brilliant place, and it's been a brilliant season so far with a wee bit to go. Plenty of options for you here, Paddy, to choose from, but what's been your Celtic moment of the week?
There has been a few, and I'm actually kind of taking it back to the aftermath of the semi-final. So the fans were obviously recorded singing a tremendous song in light of something happening at the weekend there, and it got picked up by Australian news. So they were talking about it, and one of my favourite bits about the whole video was the main news anchor speaking about it. He says obviously there's a bit of anger from Celtic fans, they're directing this song towards the royal family, and he asked the reporter that he's speaking to, do you think they had the same kind of view, the same kind of anger towards the Queen? And it just cuts back to her and she's like, yes I do. And that's it. The video kind of just stops there, but it's just the fact that it's made it all the way over there, the fact that it was played in Have I Got News For You on Friday as well, and the audience at that show start cheering at the end of that as well. Just, nice to put a smile on people's faces, I suppose.
It was a very poignant moment, Paddy, and I'm glad you brought it up. James, Celtic, as I mentioned there, we've lost just once in the last 66 league games, and we've now overtaken the points tally of 93 that won last season's title, and as I say, we've still got 4 games to go. On Trophy Day last season, Ange said, quote unquote, enjoy the summer and we'll come back bigger and better because we never stop. Even before we get to next month's Scottish Cup final, has he been as good as his word?
100%. It's been quite strange. Second seasons can be tricky. We've lost players, through that, and particularly, losing them in a winter transfer window, key players, but replaced seamlessly. The word I would use to describe Celtic this season is business-like. They've just gone about their business, really quite kind of no drama. There was flair when they could play with a bit of freedom, but as it got a bit closer to the title, it just became very much about, go out there, do our job, don't get sucked into anything, take 3 points up the road. So it's last season was probably a bit more exciting because it was a wee bit tighter, less of a challenge from Rangers, I would say, this season in terms of the gap. But they've just gone about their business and done the job.
Yeah, it's interesting the similarities there in the words you lads are using. So business-like for yourself and professional, and it's hard to argue. That's where we found ourselves. It was always going to be a wee bit ropey, season 1. Ange said himself, he said, listen, strap yourself in, there's a bit of a roller coaster here and there'll be some ups and downs and bumps on the path in the early stages, but trust me, we'll get it right.
There was a great, I think it was Zinchenko or whoever it is, someone on Twitter put out, he showed the table when we were 6th in the league after 6 games in Ange's first season. Celtic have lost 1 game since then in the league. Unbelievable.
Exactly that. It's the 1 in the 66 games since, so it's been a phenomenal turnaround. James, some of the celebrations and the videos and pictures from yesterday are outstanding, particularly the ones back at Celtic Park. Tynecastle great, but as we know, only something like 1,200 officially were allowed into Tynecastle, maybe more sneaked in the back door, but back at Celtic Park, I don't know the number that was there, maybe 500,000?
6, I think.
Yeah, but loads of bodies. What's your own Celtic moment of the week?
I'm going to go for a big O. So I think he's got a way to go in terms of his Celtic journey and getting to the levels that he needs to be at to start challenging Kyogo, I suppose, for that centre forward spot. So for a couple of reasons, great for him to get a really important goal for that, like that. And for the fans, when it's 1-0 and it's a title clincher, that's nearly getting an injury time. So it was like, don't worry about that. I'll make it nice and easy for you. Scores that second goal and you can really start the party.
It's great for him, isn't it, Paddy? Because before his Celtic career's really got up and running, he's cemented his place in Celtic history.
Yeah, we all speak about Harold Brattbach to this day, and I think I agree. I agree with James in that. I think it is a big moment. It's a tidy finish, as I said yesterday. I think he has to work pretty hard to direct it that way, and it's a good striker's goal. And maybe just that little taste of winning, that little taste of like how crucial his goal was, and maybe that's what he needs to kind of kick on and really show what so many are saying about him. I think we forget that it's a lot of people are saying that we had 2 options when we were trying to sign. I can't remember who the other striker was, but we were trying to sign in January.
The other Korean?
The other Korean.
I think we're still in for him.
Really?
I think I can come in the summer, yeah.
Here's hoping. I think I've said about another striker anyway, but for O to come in and, maybe not feeling as if he was first on the list for that matter. And the fact is that he's highly thought of. And I think, a striker like Jurgen Klinsmann as your manager is only a good thing as well when it comes to the international games. But there's a lot of excitement around him. It's under our manager that hopefully we start to see the benefits of a player like him. I think he will be a good player for us. I really do.
It's interesting you talk about the fact that he might not have been first choice striker and he has to adjust his headspace to that. Remember when Ange came in and they said, how do you feel about being second choice? He says, I might not even have been second. I might have been third or fourth choice manager. It's how you as an individual frame it and get your head around it. So that's the challenge for O, but huge boost for him. He'll get plenty more minutes, between now and the end of the season, but it's going to be hard to displace a Kyogo who's looking to break scoring records as well. He's now on 30 and he'll be looking to kick on from there. Okay, let's take a look at what's coming up on this week's show. We'll continue to focus on Celtic's latest title success, but with a special look at 2 of the figures who have been so vital over the last 2 years or so. So many players have played their part in our revival, but none of it would have been possible without our 2 biggest arrivals from the J-League, Ange Postecoglou and Kyogo Furuhashi. I'll then be taking on the lads once again in this week's Mystery Cell, where I've been struggling a wee bit recently, so let's see if I can get that back on track. And finally, we'll close out the show with This Week in Celtic Media, where we'll look at a really enjoyable bit of content that James has dug out for us this week. To get things started, I want to go straight into a clip from Ange speaking just after the final whistle at Tynecastle on Sunday. He was asked what it means to him to be able to continue bringing success to Celtic, so let's hear from Ange now.
Yeah, look, we've got a great opportunity to make this season really special. Like I said, we've worked hard to get to this point, and it's great to win the 2 trophies. And now, you know what, we want to win a third, and I want it for the players, I want it for this football club, for the staff, because it's a reflection, I think, of the team they've been this year.
You're always quick to mention the fans and the team, but for yourself, is there a personal pride? You sit back and are you able to enjoy it? Yeah,
absolutely. Plenty of people in my circle make sacrifices, my family, my kids. Like I said, I got the easy bit, I'm doing what I love, but they're the ones that are a constant support, and not just my family, my friends here in Australia, the whole football club really embraced me from day one, and for that, I take pride that I'm able to sort of give something back.
James, has someone been cutting onions in here?
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's great to hear the emotion in his voice, you know, in the most positive sense of it, because it just shows how much it means to Ange. And he speaks there about the club and you know, the fans and how everyone's embraced him and his whole family. But he himself, he's gone all in on Celtic, hasn't he?
Absolutely, but I think that's how he works. You know, I think he's an all-in kind of guy. The same way that, you know, with players, you're all in or you're all out. He's the same himself, you know, and he's really immersed himself. You know, you see how much he, you know, the interview they were saying, you know, the way he talks about the fans, he always references the fans because he knows that without them we're nothing, you know, without Celtic fans. So it's just fantastic. I mean, you know, as you were saying in your interview last night, football's football. I don't think there's anything going to happen anytime soon with Ange. I see him here for 2-3 years at least, build a bit of a legacy, build a structure, and then he can go and do whatever he wants, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it all comes down individually, Paddy, into how you interpret those kind of comments. I think he get very emotional because it means so much to him. Now, the counter to that could be that he's getting emotional because he's maybe looking at, you know, what's next for him. He was interviewed separately. I can't remember who by, but I heard it today. And he was saying, listen, I don't think any further ahead. I live for the moment. I do what I'm doing, and, you know, you need to just focus on the here and now. So he wasn't, you know, he wouldn't be drawn on his future. But how confident are you, Paddy, that Ange will be here for a good while yet to come?
Next season, definitely. Beyond that, I just think it's too hard to tell. I really do. And I'd love to think that it was going to be 3 or 5 years or 40. But yeah, it is football, and you know, people will be taking note of this down south. That seems to be the next step for him. I think, you know, he's moved the family over here, and he's got a focus at this club. And I think he probably could afford to give us another 2 years if he wanted, and then look at, you know, maybe wrapping up things in terms of have a spell in England, and then see if that takes him back towards maybe even another stint at the Australia job or something like that. He loves it here. He loves it here, and I think what we're seeing there is we see this guy that comes and speaks to the media before and after every game, and he represents the club. And I go back to that term, professionally. And what we see there is probably, you know, switching off and just taking in actually what he's done. I wouldn't worry about losing him this summer, no chance. It would take a really, really special club to come in and take Ange Postecoglou away from an already special club.
Yeah, in terms of his own CV, so that was his third title in 4 years. He won the league with Yokohama Marinos in 2019, and it's his fifth national title across 3 different continents. And at the bargain, he's also managed at World Cups, as we well know. At 57 years of age, James, 58 in August, will he maybe see one last challenge beyond Celtic? I suppose he's, you know, you talk about footballers, and we'll get to Kyogo shortly, you know, you get to that kind of age where it's maybe one last big move. I wonder if Ange is in the same bracket. Now, I know you've got guys like Roy Hodgson still managing it. I think he's 93, something like that. So, you know, he's maybe got a few years in the tank. But in terms of one last big challenge, he's at a pivotal age, I suppose, like, you know, we need to be honest about it.
Yes, but, you know, can you really see Ange, so say 65, he decides, right, that's enough of the football management. Was he going to go and join the Bhoys? It's just, he'd be football obsessed anyway, so he might as well manage somebody. I think he'll manage quite late, maybe into his early 70s or something, because he just doesn't seem the kind of guy, you know, if he did take the time off and go travelling with the family and all these things, all he'd be doing is thinking about and trying to catch up with football anyway, so might as well get paid for it.
If you look at the kind of, I'm not his biggest fan, but Louis van Gaal, when you've seen him, he's retired about 3 times, and he's just come right back out of it. I think he was quoted in an interview saying, I love football too much that when I took time off, my wife wanted to divorce me.
Get out.
Like, so I think he kind of comes into that same bracket as people that just breathe it, and he said that. He said that already. I think he'll go way to the very end, and I do think he's still got a big move in him, though. I do.
So that, and you know, and on one hand, the big target is to keep him as long as possible here at Celtic, but there's also an intrigue as to how he would do elsewhere, because it would shut a few folk up who always kind of look disparagingly at what's going on in Scotland. So as James mentioned, I was on the BBC last night, Paddy. I've gone in a different direction.
I've never mentioned it.
Career-wise, but so I was on BBC 5 Live's podcast after the game, and interestingly, you know, it's only a short clip, but I was asked twice about Celtic personnel moving south. It was Ange and Kyogo. You know, they're saying, yeah, they're doing great, but when do you think they'll move, and will you be able to hold on to them?
Just the assumption.
And that's always just, yeah, exactly. They just presume that you do well in Scotland, then you move on. Is that just a byproduct, Paddy, of being successful here in Scotland?
Sadly is. It's the narrative Sky have created. It's a narrative that the media have created, and it's definitely just the fact that it's a bigger population. There's more money in the pot. It's a standard practice. We're aware of that. It would take something very special. When I say special, I think back to Henrik Larsson and the amount of times he was approached by teams in England, especially one of the best managers ever to have lived in the game, played in the game with Alex Ferguson. Ferguson spoke so much about how Larsson would have been perfect for them.
How long he was after him.
How long he was after him. I think, obviously it sounds a small amount. I think we knocked back 14, 15, 16 and 17 million for him, which is crazy amounts of money back in that time. And that's what you're kind of after. Do you have that commitment? So it's up to him to create something special. And that we speak about these potential European runs. We speak about, that was the excitement that Martin O'Neill brought to us as fans in this modern day. And could he be the one that does something like that? I think so. I do think so. I don't know what competition, but I don't think he cares what competition's put in front of him. He'll want to succeed in all of them. But then we're kind of going back to that same kind of theme that you got on your call with the BBC. I seen today Karen Brady has done an article about him. West
About
Ham.
Ange?
Really?
About Ange and how impressive he's been.
Because I tell you something, regardless what happens, I think Bhoys further off this summer.
Aye.
So he had a great win against Man United there yesterday. He's got them in a semi-final of the Conference League. He might well go on to win that, but I think they'll go in a different direction. So it's an interesting one that someone linked with West Ham is saying that.
Aye, that was a slight worry, but I don't see Ange going there.
No, he's only going for something that is genuinely kind of, really, really unturndownable. Clubs like West Ham.
That's not a word, is it?
It is now.
Unturndownable.
I just think clubs like West Ham aren't going to float his boat. I think he would rather go into continental Europe and do something there rather than go to a smaller, English team. If a bigger English team comes calling top six, maybe. Spurs, I think, is a potential shout, the kind of football they like to play.
Yeah, it's just that there's a number of high-profile jobs that are available or will become available. So it's always going to be a concern. But listen, let's move quickly away from that. We don't want to sit in some anxiety and, geez, we've only just won the league and those Egypts are
chasing him at the door.
So let's move on from that. There's a quote of Ange's that I reference fairly frequently, but I always get it wrong. I always just paraphrase it. But speaking around about this time last year to a show in Australia called Sports Day, he was asked about life at Celtic, and again, quote unquote, he said, "It's everything I've ever wanted in a football club." And as I say, that was last pre-season and between the this year and last. And surely, Paddy, after the success of yesterday and what's still potentially to follow this season, he must feel even stronger than that now.
Yeah, so if he decides that he's thinking about leaving, we just play that recording and say, what was that all about then, Ange? No, I think he's he definitely has fallen in love with it. He's fallen in love with the story. He's fallen in love with the fans and basically what I assume the majority of us all stand for, and it resonates with him. Yeah. It definitely resonates with him, which is a great thing. Because we see the managers we've had, and I was kind of talking about yesterday that genuine kind of football manager, that guy that gets the club, gets the fans, gets everything about it, has no agenda, no personal bias. It's just all about the job at hand and all about the fans. Because at the end of the day, we're paying to watch them. We're paying for that entertainment. And I've spoken about Burns being one of those kind of managers, knew what it was about. And I think that the one that I've seen this time round is Ange. I take nothing away from the likes of Martin O'Neill and that. I think Martin O'Neill kind of understood what it was about, but Martin O'Neill understood how it was to get a team of experienced footballers and kind of give them that restart in their career. Whereas this is all about nurturing, this is all about unearthing players that none of us have heard of and just putting on a great show of football. It's brilliant.
You reminded me of a quote there, Paddy. It's from somebody Celtic-y, but I can't remember who, so you can maybe remind me. But he said, football's all about people who play and people who pay. And I can't mind if it was Tommy Burns. So basically speaking, it's about the players and it's about the fans.
Very old.
Maybe very old.
In fact, Paul Sheridan does that as his very old impersonation.
Can they play?
Yeah. So, and it's all too true, isn't it? But Ange knows that. Ange, he always, as you say, Paddy, we hear frequently from Ange, which is a great thing because pre and post every game we get, 20 odd minutes or whatever it is. and he never forgets the fans, and they're always foremost in his mind. And actually, different football guys will say different things to curry favour and to appease the fans. It's just so genuine, and he genuinely appreciates where he is in life.
As long as you're here, I'm here.
See what you've done there.
You can see that he's so relaxed in interviews. You don't need to be nervous when you're telling the truth, and you're just telling people what you believe. And that's how he comes across every time. He's the most genuine manager I've seen at Celtic in years. There's, Lennon is obviously a massive Celtic fan, but he was so wary of the press that he was, quite guarded in interviews. Rodgers is just a consummate salesman. O'Neill was always for the superlatives. So over the last few managers, I would say Ange is the most genuine and relaxed, confident he's won abilities.
James, you've said in the past that you think Ange will remain here as long as he feels he's being challenged. So what does the next challenge look like, and what is success next season?
I think it's like Paddy's saying, it's a run in Europe, whether that's Champions League. Personally, I would like to be pushing for second place in Champions League and not worrying about dropping in for a Europa run. I'd like to push ourselves as hard as we could, and that's what we'll be doing anyway. So I think that would be success, getting out of the group and into the last 16, then seeing where that takes you. But I think in terms of his challenges to himself, I think he'll want to have one more. Next season will be the first time he really gets to have a crack at Europe. First year, forget it. Second year, just not quite there. And it was close. A couple of tweaks in that team and you've got a totally different table there. So this will be one where they can really have a good assault on it. And then next season, as in the season after next, it will be more of a, right, now we're experienced in Europe. We've got an experienced squad in Europe. Let's really go for something special.
Paddy, you've spoken about the Belgian side in Europe. Jack Henry's team.
Union Berlin. Galwaz.
No.
I have Club Brugge.
Club Brugge, that's it.
Oh, how experienced
close,
they are.
James.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So they've kind of gone on this pathway where I think they've qualified the last 5 seasons or so for the Champions League. Season 1, right off. Season 2, slightly better, and so on and so forth, till they got to the point where they were taking points off some really decent sides. Don't know if you fellas watched the Joe Hart interview after the game. It's just a couple of minutes on Celtic TV, and I'll get to just a couple of his quotes a wee bit later on in the piece, but he spoke about, it's been a great season, really good stuff, loving days like today, but we're still a bit disappointed about this season's Champions League campaign. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really grounded. It wasn't getting carried away. It was basically acknowledging that there's still a project on the go here, and as amazing as days like Sunday at Tynecastle are, there's still a bigger target for these players, and it was good just to see that kind of grounded approach from a really experienced player.
They won't forget it. We look at the teams over the years, and I used to sit down and watch Celtic in the Champions League and be like, right, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a mistake? Is it going to be a red card? Is it going to be a glorious missed chance from us? And that almost kind of bred that negativity going into away games in Europe especially. And then there was almost a mentality that, we'll win our games at home, that'll be fine. And through one or two players continue to be part of those teams, that seemed to kind of continue with Celtic. I think our record speaks for itself in that. I think obviously, given the way we approached the games, we didn't really change much. We had to soak up more pressure. Teams are going to come at us a lot quicker with better players. But we didn't really change much in how we were approaching any of our games. And we really gave a good account of ourselves. And the one moment that stuck out to me was when Ange got interviewed after the Madrid game, and he was raging. He was so angry about it, because he knew about the chances that we had. He knew about McGregor's shot, how close it was. It should be in. Yeah. He knew about Maeda's chance in front of goal. It should be in. And this is why I think that, he won't rest. He won't sit on these things. He'll be looking at, who puts that in the back of the net? And I'm not saying he's going to drop McGregor or Maeda, considering what they've come on to this season. But what he will be saying is that I'll need to work with the players I have, but I'm definitely going to get players in that are going to come and push these guys. So as much as we've signed players definitely to help that in January, I still think there's probably a good few more and big names for us that we maybe don't know are big names, but they'll be scouting at a higher level, because this could be a continuation of us getting in there every season. So the money's there to be made.
You'll be looking at situations like where Maeda's on the bench instead of James Forrest, and there's a higher calibre player in Maeda's place. As much as we know how much Ange loves Maeda,
Yeah.
he might love someone else like Maeda that's putting that chance away, and that's where there's probably going to be he will have a cynical approach to things in the summer because he's all about the win. So if it becomes Jamesy drops off, Maeda's on the bench and a better player's on the park.
We know this, we repeat it, he's not about sentimentality. He loves his players, they love him back, but you need to be at a standard, and if there's someone else better, they will come in, and he plays the game football-wise, down that way. You were a bit any given Sunday there, Al Pacino, Paddy. Life's a bit, inches and margins and all that stuff, and that, I think that kind of sums up Celtic's Champions League campaign. It's Callum McGregor hitting the inside of the post away from taking the lead there against Madrid. There's chances at home to Shakhtar that we should have taken. We should have taken 3 points for that game. We've switched off at times when Mudrik's attacked us in the away game. There's so many very small moments in games, but added up it culminates in, I suppose, what was
top level it will, yeah.
A poor campaign. If you can manage to turn those margins in your favour, you could be onto something, and you're saying third would be a good achievement. I'm with you, James. I think second is where we should certainly be looking to target, and who knows where we could go beyond that. You've touched on it, James, in some of your comments earlier on there, but just to finish off this piece on Ange, where does he rank in your favourite 3 Celtic managers of your lifetime? So not necessarily most successful. There's guys that have, at the moment, picked up more trophies and stuff, but I'm just saying favourite guy that you can really get on board with. You really enjoy what he's doing at Celtic. I'll come with you first, Paddy. What's your...
It's probably the same 3, but...
Let's hear it.
All right. See. So
mind reader now.
Aye. To give our top 3.
Hold on. I want you to go in reverse order. 3, 2, 1.
Right. Okay. Number 3. Controversial. Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers brought me some of the best days of my life. And it was between probably him and Dyler, to be honest. But Brendan Rodgers brought me some incredible games.
Miff just fired his mobile at the wall there.
That's fine. That's fine. Notably 5-1 Ibrox. Incredible. 2 is Martin O'Neill. Hands down. Incredible football manager for us. Really, really set the tone for the club that we are today. And for me, it has to be Ange. It has to be. I think just the excitement with this guy, we're all buying into everything that he says, and we're all believing everything that he says as well. And I just think that I want him to do well. I want him to succeed. The kind of same way I was with Dyler. You were such a lovable character. You wanted him to do well, and but he's really, really delivering, and he seems as if he's really woke the board up as well. And that's only going to stand us in good stead going forward.
James, 3, 2, 1.
Tommy Burns, number 3. Just couldn't not have Tommy Burns in a top 3. He's everything that is good about Celtic. Both as a player and as a manager. Tricky circumstances. Money was tight. For the right reasons from Ferguson and stuff. But if Burns had managed at a different time, he could have had a lot more success. But he is Celtic, so he's always going to be my top 3. Ange is my number 2.
Oh,
I know. And it's very, very close. But for me, Martin O'Neill at number 1. Without Martin O'Neill, none of this happens. So you look at the stats coming out today from the one yesterday. 23 league titles have been up for grabs in the last 23 years. We've won 18 of them.
17.
Is that 18?
17 and lost 6. I checked this earlier on.
All right.
I'm going to go to my phone, but it's 18.
I think it's 18.
Yeah.
Yesterday was 18.
Check your phone.
I will check my phone, but 18.
Okay.
It's
18.
Aye.
It's 18.
And of those 5 we haven't won, take out EBTs and COVID cups,
COVID
so
Cup.
O'Neill starts all that going and blows away the 90s, and it's just puts Celtic back on the map. So it's for what O'Neill took us from and to is why he gets my vote. I mean, not just in the league, but taking us into Europe, taking us to European finals. Just as you're saying under Rodgers, but under O'Neill, some amazing days and trips away and all sorts. So that's my 3, 2, 1.
I'm the same 3 guys, but slightly different order. TB for me as well. I just think all things Celtic epitomises Celtic, and you could spend hours on that alone, just chatting about Tommy Burns and what Celtic meant to him and what he meant to us. So Tommy Burns is number 3 for me. Martin O'Neill number 2, but just Ange, Paddy. I just can't get enough of him, and there's so much to get excited about as well. And fingers crossed he's here for a long time to come, and we've got lots more Ange to look forward to. What you showed me?
The 40 that the listeners can see.
Is that 18 on
17.
that? 17.
Is it?
Oh, jeez.
Bad maths
Do you know
here.
what? Can't believe I doubted myself for a second there, Paddy.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Someone with your
Media experience.
experience.
And profile.
Aye, exactly. Surprised at you.
But interesting 3-2-1s there on Ange, and I think just at the moment you'd probably get, and recency bias could kick in, of course. We're going through a real enjoyable time, but I think he's a real contender for being the top manager in modern day Celtic, and that's a huge achievement in less than 2 years.
I'd say one thing that really goes in his favour, no Celtic manager in our lifetime has had such a cohesive relationship with the board. With the relationship he's got with Michael Nicholson and the guys now working behind the scenes, that's a big thing. It's always a bit of push-pull stuff with the manager and board.
Huge part of that can be down to Ange himself and how
Absolutely.
he builds his relationships, because you could have folk who were, fans of Lenny. Lenny's a spiky character. Brendan Rodgers could be difficult. Very Martin O'Neill had his moments.
Yeah.
He famously had kind of love-hate relationship with Brian Clough. Martin O'Neill can be spiky and all that kind of stuff. But Ange is he's just a very intelligent guy, and he knows how to build relationships. And I suppose he knows how important those relationships are, because ultimately, if you don't have that relationship with the people at the top of the club, you can't do your job. You can't go and be as successful as he's been. So, no, listen, amazing times under Ange. Big few weeks ahead as well, but long may it continue. And hopefully, as I say, we've got him here for a number of years to come. Let's move on to Kyogo. So, as I said, Ange and Kyogo are Celtic's two biggest imports from the J-League, and you could argue the case for the various other guys, but Kyogo's impact since he came in has just been phenomenal. His goal against Hearts there was his 30th of the season and his 50th since arriving at Celtic Park. He's managed to reach that 50-goal milestone in just 77 appearances, and he's the first Celtic player to hit 30 in a season since Moussa Dembele in the 2016-17 season. Paddy, is he the player of the year and waiting?
I think so. He's just really impressed me this season. I think we all thank the job that Giacomakis done for us last year when it came to the run-in and how important his goals were, and that can be quite tough for a striker to see another striker basically take all the accolade for that, and you would have expected the big man to kick on from there and make it his jersey. But the relationship between the manager and the player, I think, has spoke volumes. He's trusted him through a lot. I go back to the League Cup final against Hibs last year, probably a game he shouldn't have played in, aggravated his injury, but won us our first bit of silverware. And the mentality, the motivation that gives the players from that, and it breeds that winning culture that is so important at Celtic. This is a guy where there was a lot of chat last year that there was Southampton were staring at him, and I was wondering, in that summer there, with him not finishing the end of the season, that interest might have become a bit real, and I was quite worried about losing him. But to just kick on the way he has this year, and there will be teams looking at him in the summer. He's a nifty player. He's just, the type of goals he scores is just ridiculous. Some of his finishing.
Yes, I was reading a stat about, I've not got a great handle on XG and all that kind of stuff, but basically his XG is far lower than his actual XG being expected goals. But for anyone that doesn't know, and I'm not much further ahead in the knowledge of that, but XG being expected goals is much lower than his actual goals, because he scores goals that he shouldn't. He scores from mad angles, he scores from distance, he scores from close in, and he's that kind of guy that turns nothing into goals. You mentioned that League Cup final against Hibs, and I just had a smile. So obviously we've spoken about the emotion that Ange showed at the post-match interview there at Tynecastle. The picture, the image of Kyogo jumping into Ange's arms after the cup final, he'd been subbed off at the time, scored his 2 goals, done his job and retired to the bench, and just jumping into Ange's arms, and there's a still of it, Kyogo's he's got his arms round Ange's shoulders like a toddler getting taken off to bed. The wee man's fell asleep on the couch. We need to take him up here. And it's just an amazing picture, but it just shows you the bond between player and manager. You'll hear ex-players of Ange, maybe Australian internationals, talking about how he doesn't get too close. He watches training from a distance. He takes a bit of a back step. He doesn't get pally with the players. Paddy, you spoke about how the dressing room at Lennoxtown is Callum McGregor's domain, and he and the players take control of that area. But his players love him, and he's the kind of guy that players just want to do well for. He's got this magnetic aura, if you like, without being too dramatic about it. And Kyogo's a heart on sleeve wee guy. I mean, you seen him yesterday and how much he absolutely loved it. And in that moment, it just kind of summed it up. It's just over the course of a few seconds, he jumps into Ange's arms, but it just epitomised maybe their relationship and also how all the players feel about Ange, the manager.
Absolutely. And, why wouldn't you? He's he's that kind of talismanic leader. It's the aura, I don't think you're being over dramatic there. It's the presence that you feel when he's, we'd be in a room and he was doing a talk thing, you feel it. You can feel that kind of talent in the room. So the players will be feeling that as well, and no less than Kyogo, and he's had a fantastic season. For me, I think his season's slightly blotted by Europe. I think he's got to be better next year if he's not going to be involved in the conversations about, do we have to improve upon things. So that's the only thing that kind of goes against him. It's Calmack for Player of the Year for me, but Kyogo, you've just got to love him.
Just in terms of how he's progressed, and I agree with you, he's still to step up in Europe, but I think he's just continuing to improve. So last season he missed 3.5 months of the season with that hamstring niggle, but he still reached 20 goals across 33 games for a debut season in a brand new country. He's taken it to whole new levels again this season, and we've still got 5 to go. So you could see him breaking 35 potentially, maybe throw a wee hat trick in Ibrox, things like that. So you never know. But interestingly, like Reo Hatate, his career path is slightly unorthodox, or certainly from what we're used to here in Scotland. He done the whole university thing, and he continued his studies till he was 22. So he didn't move into professional football till he was 22 when he joined FC, I think Gifu is the way to pronounce it, probably not, in the second tier of Japanese football. So he's only 6 years a professional, and that's interesting in itself. His big move, of course, then came a year later when he joined up with Andres Iniesta and co at Vissel Kobe. And Kyogo describes that as a blessed time in his career. Reflecting on it, he said, "It was precious, I'll never forget it. I could feel how much I was growing, I absorbed a lot. Before our season kicked off, Iniesta said to me, just be yourself and all will be well, play with confidence. It really inspired me to let my confident side show on the pitch." And what you're seeing now, Paddy, I suppose at 20 is the culmination of all of that, the various experiences. He's now well settled in Scotland. And I think, to James's right, point about Europe, I think he's all set to kick on now into next year in Europe.
I think so too. And I kind of had those moments of is he going to be good enough? Is he going to be good enough? And you look at some of the positions he was getting himself into last season, and again it comes down to, is the calibre of the player providing for him good enough as well? There was missed chances, but the greats all missed chances as well. And one of the things that I kind of think on his part is just what Tino's even just said there. 3.5 months out with a hamstring injury, trying to get back up to full speed from the get-go can take a bit of time. And the way he kicked on after that campaign, and he's been unstoppable. No defender wants to play against him. I think Goldson, Davies, Orsuter are all worried about him, and I just think that he has definitely cemented his place as the number one striker at Celtic. Do we sign someone to push him? Absolutely. I think that is healthy for this team, the way this team wants to play, and for the amount of games that we could be playing again next season as well. I think that will definitely be something that they're going to look at. Is O the kind of player that's going to push him? Not yet, not in my opinion. I think another season of just understanding the system, understanding the setup that Ange is looking for, and then you maybe see that start to come into play the following year. But I definitely think they will be looking at another striker. But I think Kyogo could step it up even more.
That's how I feel about it. Exactly how I feel about it. I think O's still got a bit to go, but I think he's just developing. He's in a great place headwise, and you absolutely have to credit his character with coming back from that international rejection. Missing the World Cup is huge for anybody, and at 28 years of age, he'll wonder whether he's got another chance at it. He's a very fit guy, and he could possibly play into his mid to late 30s by the looks of it. He's so agile. But James, confidence is so important in players, and he started life well at Celtic. He started getting goals early bells, but the disruption that the hamstring injury caused to his first season, frustrating, and then he comes back for the Hibs final, and then he's out again and all that stuff. This season, he's, touch wood, had no such injury concerns, and you can just see it in him. He's just a guy who's continued to get better and better as the season's gone on, and it's brilliant to see.
Absolutely, and we've probably managed it a wee bit better in terms of Ange and the backroom team. There's these 60 minutes, check his stats, right, get him off, get him rested, all that stuff. So you're not putting too many demands on him, on his body. So that's been good to see. But he has I take your point, Paddy. He's starting this season not at the full speed that he would like to, having missed so much of the season prior. So, and Europe comes up quick for us, you know. So, with this summer, he's fully fit. He's going to be league top scorer by the looks of things. He's brimful of confidence. So, I'd love to see him just step up to that next level and finish the ones that he wasn't finishing this season.
I agree.
Yeah. He didn't look a guy lacking confidence, Paddy, when he was bouncing around the Celtic way about 7:30, just doing his thing. He can't wait to get out in front of the fans and do his wee dance these days.
Just really, really refreshing to see players just give it all back to the fans as well. I think that's something that the nature of the full team, the full squad, they all just seem to work well with each other. You could see that. You were kind of touching on that last night, that even those that aren't involved in the match day teams, they're still part of the squad. And I think that's something that they love about the wee guy. I think he generally is just one of those lovable wee characters that's just part of the changing room.
There was a nice wee moment, sorry to interrupt you, there was a nice wee moment with him and Turnbull on the bench when he came off Kyogo.
Right.
He was kind of like,
brilliant.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. Is it even just going to say, like, Jota seemed to have the phone out yesterday and he was putting a lot of his own stuff up on Instagram, and you could see him recording Kyogo, but just in the background is just his excitement, what's he going to do now type of thing. So I think there's that side of it. I also think there's a winner there, and I think that there's someone that probably will look at that last season and think, I'm going to get this right. Do we have another striker coming in to provide the Greg Taylor effect almost? Someone that's going to really, really push him. Someone that's going to make Ange think, maybe I do drop you for a couple of games. That's the big question for Celtic next season.
I love that you came out with the line there that he's a winner, because again, there's another quote, and I don't have the exact quote again, but I'll paraphrase because that's my thing.
How do you go on the BBC?
I don't know. Paraphrasing gets you away with all sorts. You just need to get close to it, or even
I heard you paraphrasing on that interview.
But the quote about him being a winner, Ange speaking maybe 4 or 5 months ago, but Kyogo said, "Don't be fooled by the cheery exterior and the smiley face. That guy's a real competitor." And I think he says, quote unquote, he's a winner. He's got that about him. Don't be fooled by wee nice guy Kyogo, because he's got the devil in him as well, and you need to have that to be a top striker.
I know the very conversation, you use the word warrior. He's a warrior. You see that with Kyogo, we see when he's getting roughed up with Davies and stuff like that, then Kyogo's leaving the boot on him.
Aye.
Saying, here's one back. Mm-hmm. So he's got that wee bit of nip about him as well,
Yeah, and it's great to see, and you need to have it, as I say. The international stuff, it does remain a bit of a mystery, and I suppose it'll be on Kyogo's mind, and it'll have been highlighted with the World Cup stuff. It is hard to work out so Hajime Moriyasu is the Japan manager. Hard to work out how you can continue to leave out what is now a 30-goal striker, 30-goal plus, and we'll see if that changes. He said he was going to be spending some time in Europe, looking closer at his players here, and if he doesn't pick Kyogo, there's something up there. I really do. I can't get my head round.
They were looking at Matoma as well, though, down at Brighton, who's on fire, so in a very similar position. Well, to both Maeda and Kyogo, actually.
Scoot an easy jet up to Glasgow, though, and take in a couple of other games, and you'll definitely see Kyogo go. So we'll see how that goes for him, but I'd be very hopeful that him and Tati would be reintroduced to the squad pretty soon. People obviously ask the question if Kyogo's the best since Henrik Larsson, etc., and it's an unfair comparison to make for anyone who's playing for Celtic. It's just, you can't really live up to that. But again, maybe similar to my Ange question there, is he amongst your favourite Celtic strikers in recent years for you?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say he's right up there, but you're looking at Gary Hooper, Moussa Dembele, Odsonne Edouard is probably the three that would be competing with him for that accolade.
What about the Duke? Double D, Big Dion?
Is that
you missed him?
Dublin? No DD for me. But I think Moussa Dembele is always going to be my choice there.
Big fan of Dembele myself, but again, we're living it right now. This is living the moment, as Ange says, Paddy, and you can't help but enjoy what Kyogo brings to the party.
You can't. It's just some of the positions he gets himself into. You're just, how have you put that away? The goal yesterday.
See that goal?
Scored that?
See that goal with I can't remember who was in the right wing, but they're so wildly offside.
Aye.
But that's not where the ball's going. The ball's going straight through a Tati. It's so clever. And then the defence is all over the place, and Kyogo's made his run, and it's just too late for them.
I wonder if in the euphoria it can be lost as to how good a goal it was. The ball from Callum McGregor is genius. He gets the ball, gets it out his feet and just clips it into that area in jig time. He doesn't even think about it. He knows he can it's the periphery stuff. You can just see the movement from Hatate. Plays it perfectly. Hatate knows that Kyogo will get to that front post area, and then Kyogo having the savvy just to let it run across his body that wee bit more before lifting it. It's a brilliant team goal. Celtic weren't at their best at Tynecastle, but that goal is Celtic at their best. That is peak Celtic.
It is, and it kind of reminds me of, I remember listening to an interview with Alan Thompson, and he was talking about Larsson, and he was saying that as much as, he said, I knew I had a good cross on me, he said, I wouldn't have made it in football if I didn't. He says, but a lot of the time when you're playing in those high pressure games, you were hitting and hoping. You were generally hitting and hoping the ball into the box. And the amount of work that Larsson done to get on the end of stuff was the sign of a tremendous striker. He said that at one point in training, Larsson would say to him, look, this is all it needs to be. Let me kind of basically do the rest.
Get it in that big area and I'll do the rest.
I'll do the rest. And that's a striker. I think that there's similarities between Kyogo and Larsson is that they're incredible readers of the game. Just their off the ball movement is tremendous.
But amazing to see Kyogo hit number 30, and as I say, there's a few more games to go, and we'll see where his goal tally gets to. There's various other really enjoyable moments about yesterday, and we don't have time, unfortunately, to cover them all. You'll have seen Alistair Johnson getting caught in traffic on London Road, having the time of his life. Just great fun. He's got a great relationship with the fans, which is brilliant to see. Celtic media put out a lot of good things. I thought it was very interesting that some of the interviews they put out looked to me quite deliberately to be speaking to the fringe players. You've heard from Benjamin Siegrist, Stephen Welsh, David Turnbull, James Forrest, but they're all, we've spoken about this on the post-match yesterday, but they're all very, very happy to be part of that and very happy with their teammates. They'll all have individual targets and some will move on, but right here, right now, they're really good team players and they're shown real good willing to be part of what Celtic are doing. In terms of the team spirit as well, I think I've said it a few times now in recent weeks, but I think Joe Hart plays a huge part in that. He's effectively the vice-captain to Callum McGregor, and he's so important. Special mention to him because, of course, it was his 100th appearance for Celtic at Tynecastle, loving life in Glasgow, and he's really embraced it. He's quoted as saying, "It's amazing, I love it, but tomorrow will come, and it's a new day, and that's a great opportunity to do something special again." And that just sums up an Ange Postecoglou player. He's in the middle of it. He was at Tynecastle, the fans were bouncing behind him. Special moment for a guy who maybe thought his best days were beyond him, and he's already thinking, yeah, but we're back at, and they're training today, by the way. This is Monday. We're back at training, but it shows just the focus that Ange and the players, epitomised by Hearts, McGregor's, Carter Vickers and all that stuff, they're all just so focused on what's next, and it's great to see.
That is it, because that's your league sorted, but the season is still very, very much alive. If they have the attitude of over celebrating now or taking your eye off the ball, you don't get that Scottish Cup. I think we were talking on Sunday, Paddy. I'm not relaxed about that one bit. Cally Thistle, referees, VAR, the whole lot. Not relaxed about that. So I like the fact that Joe Hart isn't sleeping on it as well, and that'll be the exact same throughout the camp. They'll be really focused, and then of course they do have to recognise the achievements and celebrate, and hopefully celebrating a treble.
Hope so, and I thought it was refreshing to hear they're training the day after. Listen, I'd have given them the day off. Go and enjoy yourselves, but refreshing that we're in today. But overall, brilliant day all round for Celtic. And next up, it's the trip to Ibrox, where we go as champions, targeting that 107 points tally. So that in itself is going to be loads of fun next week. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Cell, and we'll start with a quick reminder of last week's for anyone who missed it. Clue number 1, I joined the Celtic Academy in 2011 and made my debut under Neil Lennon in early 2014. Clue number 2, I went on to make appearances under Ronnie Dyla and Brendan Rodgers, but also spent time on loan at Oldham, Cork and Walsall. And finally, clue number 3, I'm still playing and have just won promotion to League 2 in England. The answer, which I think James got after a couple of clues, was Owen O'Connell. Paddy, as I said there, he's now doing his thing at Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and co. But any thoughts on his time in a Celtic shirt?
I was hopeful about him. I think it was a pre-season game against Leicester actually.
He scored.
He scored, and I thought he looked the part. He looked quite comfortable. But yeah, just another one in the youth setup that kind of just didn't seem to find a rhythm with the first team's tactics, which I think has been addressed now. Or just basically a way in. A lot of the managers are talking about, it needs to be done in merit. I think he was one of those guys, and who's doing well in the youth team? O'Connell, I gave him a chance.
Aye.
I genuinely think that's how it was kind of done.
Wasn't proper pathway stuff.
Exactly.
He got the captain's armband in a pre-season friendly against Sparta Prague. I was reading this isn't from memory, in 2015. And it just seemed like a kind of throwaway gesture. I don't know if that said there wasn't enough leaders in the team at the time, but for some reason he got the armband. And you'd like to think that you have to earn. Ange doesn't give anything for free, and you have to earn these things at Celtic nowadays. But I wonder if back then things weren't quite as, I don't know, dare I say professional as they could have been.
Well, that would have been under Dyler.
How dare you blame Ronnie Dyler?
No, what I'm meaning is that he's probably looking at the rest of his starting team and saying, I'm giving it to this guy, stand up.
Because they were all trying to be, Commons and Mulgrew and all that stuff, trying to run the shows. He's like, well, none of these are getting the captaincy.
Yeah,
Well, it might have been a bit of that,
Very possibly. So just in terms of a short fact file on O'Connell, he spent 6 years in total at Celtic after joining the academy in 2011, and he left for Bury in 2017. He spent time, as I said, there at Cork City on loan, his hometown club, in 2016, and that's a club that his dad and his brother also played for. His cousin Paul O'Connell was also captain of the Ireland rugby team. And overall, he only featured a handful of times for Celtic, although one of them was away in the Nou Camp, though less said about the scoreline the better, Paddy. We'll just move on. But best of luck to Owen O'Connell as he now heads into League 2 with Wrexham. OK, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt. For anyone joining in at home, jump onto our Twitter page at Celtic Exchange right now. And if you guess the correct answer, you'll be given access to 14 days free of the Celtic Exchange Plus. Clue number 1. There's not a lot in this clue, to be fair. I joined Celtic from Hibs. That's it.
Past Danton. Jackie McNamara Senior.
A lot of guesses there. Clue number 2. I played the part of a Rangers player in Robert Duvall's 2002 movie, A Shot at Glory.
Chick Charlie. No.
Chick Charlie never played for Celtic.
No, of course. Aye.
A friendly
I
against
was
Man
at that
United.
friendly, aye.
And clue number 3. Despite being a member of the Seville squad, I never wore a cap for my country. And as always, you've got until I read out this short update to provide your answer. So while the lads are guessing the wrong answer to this week's Mystery Celt, a very short reminder from me on what's coming up this week at the Celtic Exchange Plus. On Friday, we'll have the big match preview ahead of that trip to Ibrox as the boys look to set a new record for league points in a season. And as always, we'll then be back shortly after the final whistle on Saturday with our match reaction show. If you want to test the water at the Celtic Exchange absolutely free, then just visit our website at thecelticexchange.com, where you'll see the links to get started on your free 7-day trial. It takes less than 2 minutes to get going, and while you're there, you can also enjoy the match reaction recording from Sunday's big one at Tynecastle, as well as our full back catalogue of additional episodes. So if you enjoy what we do and want to hear a wee bit more every week, then jump over to thecelticexchange.com now. What have you got, Paddy?
So I think I got it first go. If I haven't,
Yeah.
I did. I got it.
He done this last week as well.
He's just raging.
Because he's scrambling around your head for 10
Well,
minutes.
listen, I need to go poker face. It's my job as the host. So we'll get it beeped out, Paddy, but what's your answer? That is absolutely correct.
I need to can that as
So
well.
the score is now 11-7. I'm running out of weeks. I'm going
5 games to go, including the cup final.
You're going to see some really mystery celts in the next few weeks. That's all I'll say. But remember, if you think you know the answer to this week's mystery celt and want to enjoy 14 days free of the Celtic Exchange Plus, then simply reply to our pinned tweet at Celtic Exchange using the hashtag mystery celt.
You should just use the players that are, giving out all the quotes that you've mentioned tonight as well. See if we can guess them.
The guys
Who
who
said
don't know.
this?
You're going to be seeing some mystery celts from Celtic's first ever team, but we'll get to all that. Time for This Week in Celtic Media, where each week we dig out something of interest from the world of Celtic online. This week features a really topical piece following Sunday's title win at Tynecastle. James, what have you got?
I'm going to be slow. I want to get the guy's name to give him credit. You're going to put the notes anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll put in the notes.
But it was from Aidan on Twitter. So
Aidan_CSC, because I think there's more than one
That's it.
Aidan on
There
Celtic
is.
Twitter.
Are you Aidan from the Twitter? And he's basically just, the time it must have taken him to get into this, but he's put together a compendium of all the goals from this season. So a perfect time to just sit back and reminisce on some of the key goals from the season. Yeah, brilliant. Fair play to him for putting the effort into that. So that's your media piece for the week.
Yeah, I think Aidan had the holiday Monday because he's put some real time into it. But it's a brilliant piece and he deserves credit. And do you know what? We put something out on our Twitter last night as well. Some of the videos are phenomenal and the time and effort to put them out, they're top drawer, and credit to everyone that's putting together some of the great content following the big win. But
Did you get that for the BBC?
No, you don't get that.
No, you don't.
I'll speak to them when I'm in next. But Aidan's piece, it's basically the goals that won the 22-23 league title. So it's the likes of Jota's iconic goal now against Rangers. Giacomakis, not to be forgotten, his goal against St Johnstone. Greg Taylor against Hearts back in October.
That's the one for me.
Kalmak against Aberdeen when he came back from injury, scored the 1-0 winner. Kyogo against Rangers in the 2 each game, and several others. And it's just a really enjoyable thread and a reminder of some of the obstacles the players have had to overcome. Yesterday's the reward at Tynecastle. There's a lot of work and effort that goes into that. Any favourites amongst those goals, James? Any that stand out?
GT3 and Kalmak against Aberdeen. The one that's my favourite game of the season. That 4-3 Hearts, because it was give us everything you've got and we'll still beat it. And for Taylor to get that goal was just phenomenal. But McGregor's was so important because you'd waited the whole game. I think it was his first game back from injury as well. And to get that goal, as Ange says, be patient, keep moving, keep the ball moving, and it'll happen. The space will open up, and there it did. They defended so well. Aberdeen went to sleep for 2 seconds, and bang, you're done.
Such a huge goal. What about you, Paddy? Any standout goals or even moments that led to the title?
I'd agree with the McGregor goal. I also think the moment and the goal itself, Jota round the McGregor, was just
just there.
Aye. Amazing.
Nice.
A career ender, you might say.
Career ender.
That was a career ender.
I better not say anything about Alan.
Yeah,
Better not say anything about him.
that was a very enjoyable moment. But as James says, it's a great piece all round. Great effort by Aidan_CSC on Twitter. Very enjoyable. And as always, we'll link to this one in the show notes for the episode. James, a great feeling to have the league title in the bag. How you feel now about the trip to Ibrox, and what's your final thoughts for the week?
It's all about the numbers now. It's all about the targets and the records and all these things. Obviously, the main focus remains Scottish Cup final. But, Paddy set Ange a challenge. League win, done. Treble, waiting. League by 20 points, nearly. So, get in there. If you can go to 16 if you win on Saturday. And then a wee bit of collapsing towards the end, and it's all there for you, Paddy.
Yeah, a bit of collapsing, but lovely. Paddy, 5 games remaining, obviously 4 in the league in the big final a few weeks down the line. What's your final words for the week?
Just more of the same. I think we've highlighted that it's maybe not been as fluid as the season's kind of been lately. I think that's just a mixture of players coming back from injury and trying to get up to speed. But I generally think that the entertaining game will be on for the next few weeks leading up to this final. So I'll be there to tune in for every single one. I think it'll be a nice ending to the season. It's party time, and then let's get ready for a difficult final.
You can play a wee bit of swagger now.
I think so.
The pressure's off. It's time to just get back to the free-flowing stuff. And there's individual targets. You've Kyogo want his goals. Guys like Iwata want to show they can play in this cup final. There's so much to play for over these next 5 games, and it's a pretty exciting time. So that wraps things up on the latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Paddy for joining me today, and as always, our thanks to you for listening. Remember to send your Mystery Celt answer to us on Twitter if you think you know this week's answer. And beyond that, don't forget to visit thecelticexchange.com, where you can start your free 7-day trial and enjoy all the additional podcasts we offer to subscribers. But in the meantime, from myself and the team, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again this time next week.